You've worked hard enough. I'll take it from here, so go ahead and enjoy your unemployment. Suddenly, I was fired by my direct supervisor, Bill. This happened while I was diligently preparing for a major business deal. Unable to accept it, I protested several times, but the decision was irreversible. I explained the situation to Jason, who is my subordinate and partner on this project. Now that I had been fired, I had no choice but to entrust everything to him. But I couldn't just let it end like this. There was no way I would simply accept unfair treatment and quietly suffer. Just you wait and see. I muttered to myself on the way home, seething with frustration. My name is Kyle, a 31-year-old office worker. It has been a decent amount of time since I joined my current company. I work with subordinates who are all sincere and reliable people. They also seem to hold me in high regard, which makes every day enjoyable. I wish I could say there are no problems with the working environment, but there is just one thorn in my side, my direct supervisor, Bill. Bill, a high achiever, has a habit of flaunting his degree from a prestigious university, even in unrelated conversations. He is 32 years old, the same age as me, but his personality is the complete opposite. No matter how inconsistent the conversation is, he always ends with, "Well, I graduated from a prestigious private university." He has a troublesome personality and becomes overtly grumpy when he is not praised for it. His pride is taller than the Empire State Building, and he generally looks down on others. Bill believes he is someone who naturally deserves respect. However, no one in the company actually likes him. It's no surprise, but Bill himself refuses to accept that fact. Apparently, he doesn't like me because I don't have a prestigious degree like him. Yet I am admired by my subordinates. He has taken every opportunity to target me, showering me with sarcasm and insults. Most of it is so trivial that it's silly to even bother with. If I deliver good results at work, he accuses me of things like, "You must have bribed the client." That's something a low-educated person would think of doing. He vents his frustration at not being admired onto me, which is utterly unreasonable. It's almost like he's sick with a condition where he can't help but find fault. However, amid these unreasonable accusations, there were strangely some aspects of him that I could understand. Once, I secured a relatively large deal and was recognized within the company. Bill spoke condescendingly, "Your work is just mass-produced. Try to be more creative." Honestly, it was hardly advice since it lacked specificity. But the words about being more creative strangely made sense to me. Regardless of Bill's intentions, I wanted to try it. If there was a unique way I could do things, I decided to reevaluate my work style. I explored new sales techniques and strategies I hadn't tried before to find an approach that felt right to me. Seeing my motivation sparked by his sarcastic remark, Bill seemed displeased. The frequency of his nitpicking about everything I did steadily increased. I forgot to mention, besides his high education, there's another reason Bill acts so superior at work. The person running the company is his relative. According to rumors, Bill himself landed the job through connections. As the company is owned by his relatives, he'd often threaten subordinates, saying, "Want to see what happens when you defy me in this company?" The more he acted this way, the less likely it was for anyone to admire him. Both my subordinates and other employees, including myself, spent our days troubled by Bill's behavior. During these challenging times, I successfully secured a major business deal. It might sound exaggerated, but it could be considered a significant achievement since joining this company. Thinking it wouldn't be right to monopolize this opportunity, I decided to handle this project together with my former subordinate, Jason. It was a chance I grasped while still searching for my own working style in the dark. Determined to make it a success, I prepared meticulously. Thanks to regular meetings with the client, our relationship was in excellent shape. Together with Jason, I felt confident about our progress. However, that confidence was abruptly shattered one day. As the critical business meeting approached, I was suddenly summoned by Bill. "Here you go. Take it," he said, handing me a piece of paper without any explanation. Wondering what this was about, I took it and checked the contents. It was a termination letter. Caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, I panicked slightly. Wait a minute. What did I do? Figure it out yourself, he said dismissively. Even as he said that, I couldn't recall doing anything that would warrant being fired. Could anyone be satisfied with such an abrupt dismissal? I repeatedly asked Bill for an explanation. No matter how much I pressed, he kept evading the question. With the day of the big business deal approaching, this was unbelievable. Don't worry about the deal you secured, he said, provoking my confusion. Bill smirked sinisterly. What did he mean by not to worry? You've worked hard enough. I'll take it from here, so go ahead and enjoy your unemployment, he sneered. After saying so, he walked away despite my attempts to stop him. Am I in some kind of bad dream? I thought. Instinctively, I pinched my cheek. It hurt. Unmistakably, this was reality. As I stood there with a pale face, Jason approached me worried. Kyle, what happened? Did Bill say something to you? Apparently, I'm fired as of today. I showed him the termination letter handed by Bill. Jason was even more shocked than I was and remained frozen, staring at it. This is ridiculous. There's no reason for you to be fired. I'd asked Bill for an explanation, but he gave me none. This is too much, even for harassment. Having Jason be so angry on my behalf was a relief, but I also felt incredibly guilty. I was supposed to handle this major deal with him for the sake of his learning experience. I briefly explained the situation and then left the company. Bill was probably eager to take over the major business deal he had taken from me. However, this was not a simple deal that just anyone could handle. The next day, Bill turned pale as a ghost when he learned the details of the deal. The reason was that the business partner was a French company, and all the documents were written in French. What is this? He shouted while trembling, holding the documents filled with French text. He had a high educational background but did not speak French, leaving him completely helpless. He couldn't decipher the documents, and all calls from the party were in French. This was clearly not a situation he could handle. His work phone was filled with missed calls. If things continued this way, the major deal would fall apart. Recognizing Bill's inability to handle the situation, Jason stepped in to take charge. Jason is fluent in French, not only in everyday conversation but also in business discussions. However, as he was still relatively new to the workforce, there was still some uncertainty. Jason handled communications with the trading partner, while Bill managed other support tasks. In this way, Bill and Jason's makeshift team managed to hang on until the day of the business meeting. The two arrived at the partner company's office, entering with nervous expressions. Hey, Jason, I really can't handle French, so I'm counting on you. There's no need for you to be nervous, Bill. What do you mean? You'll see soon. Let's go. They checked in and entered the negotiation room. What awaited them was the business partner. The surprising thing, however, was the person sitting in the seat. Upon seeing the face of the person sitting at the partner's table, Bill was shocked. What? It's you, Kyle. Yes, the ones waiting in the conference room were the foreign business partner and me. The appearance of a person who had been fired obviously disturbed Bill. Moreover, since I was sitting at the partner's table, his confusion was even greater. While Bill was understandably upset, Jason greeted me calmly. Kyle, I'm looking forward to working with you today. Likewise, I'm counting on you. Wait, Jason, did you know about this? In contrast to the flustered Bill, Jason and I were completely calm as we exchanged conversation. Leaving the frantic Bill behind, we began the negotiation. I used to work in a managerial position at the company that is now their partner in this major deal. Currently, we are at the U.S. branch office, while I used to work at the headquarters located in France. I had no plans to return to the U.S., but an unexpected situation arose. My parents fell sick, and I needed to temporarily return to take care of them. As a result, someone introduced me to a job while I was looking for employment in the U.S. This person was Brad, Bill's father, who had declared my termination. Brad and I had met while working at the U.S. branch. Through this connection, he introduced me to the company from which I had recently been laid off. Bill, his son, was unaware of this fact. After being fired by Bill, I decided to work again at the U.S. branch where we were currently sitting. Thanks to my track record at the headquarters in France, I quickly assumed a significant position within the company. As a result, here I was, appearing as the business partner for Jason and Bill. When I resigned, Jason had already been informed about the whole sequence of events. Therefore, he was not surprised to see me sitting as their client. Bill, who doesn't speak French, turned pale when I showed up. Despite the business meeting about to start, he couldn't utter a single word. The door to the business meeting room suddenly opened as the conversation in French continued. When Bill looked back towards the door, he saw his father, Brad, standing there. "Dad?" Bill's confusion deepened with the appearance of his father. However, everyone except Bill had been informed of this situation in advance. One reason was that his father wanted to see how his son would handle a major transaction. Another reason was to meet with me. Brad had always treated me well since we first met. Bill, his son's contemporary, greatly admired my international success. We often dined together, maintaining a personal relationship. Apparently, when he heard that I would be discussing business with his son, he couldn't sit still, so he came rushing over to the scene. I also had something I wanted to tell Brad. "Brad, I have something to report about your son's behavior." "Did Bill do something?" "Your son usurped a major transaction midway and irrationally fired me." "What?" At that moment, I pulled out a voice recorder. It had been secretly recording when Bill had declared my termination. Having been harassed previously, I had been gathering evidence to report to upper management. On the day I was suddenly summoned by Bill, I had a bad feeling and discreetly carried a voice recorder in my pocket. I never thought it would come in handy at such a time. Please listen to this. I pressed the play button on the voice recorder. The unreasonable interaction during which Bill had fired me played out. Looking over at Bill, he was pale and sweating. He must have lived trying to hide his misconduct at the company from his father, but that was going to end today. "There's more. Please listen," I said. The various abuses Bill had hurled at me and other employees began to play, one after another. Listening to them alone was enough to churn up unpleasant feelings. Brad listened to the end with a stern expression, glaring at his son. After all the recordings were played, silence filled the negotiation room. "Bill, can you explain this?" Brad asked. "Of this, it seems I was wrong to ask our relative, President Bennett, to give you a job through connections, but I mean." Bill stammered, searching for an excuse. But he couldn't come up with anything. Justifying such a litany of abuses was impossible. "I'll contact President Bennett myself, and you will be fired." "What?" Bill's reaction, more fitting for a cartoon or an anime, showed his shock. He had never imagined that he would be the one getting fired. Moreover, for it to happen during a negotiation with a client was beyond any prediction. Seemingly giving up on finding an excuse, he finally apologized on the spot. "I'm sorry. I got carried away because I got my job through connections and moved up the ladder." "It's too late now," Brad said firmly. "Don't say that. Come on, Kyle, persuade him too." Bill pleaded, looking at me. "Why should I, who was fired by you, have to defend you?" I replied. Instead of saying anything else, I simply looked at Bill with disdain as he apologized. "I'll contact you later about the termination. Sorry for the interruption. Please continue with the negotiation," Brad said, and then left the conference room. Bill, with a pale face, was unable to move. "So what are you going to do, Bill?" I asked. "Are you going to continue the negotiation, or would you prefer to leave the room? Choose whichever you like." After a few seconds of thought, Bill stood up and left the room. "I'm sorry for the disturbance. I know this has been a series of unexpected events, but let's resume the negotiation," Jason said calmly, without any sign of panic. Though inexperienced and unfamiliar with many aspects, Jason had made meticulous preparations for this transaction. Before I was fired, I was also in charge of this transaction with John, so I understood it well. Even if his negotiation and presentation techniques were still immature, his earnestness came through. As a result, he managed to deliver a memorable presentation that impressed his business partners. Afterward, the negotiation went smoothly. The contract was signed, and Jason was assigned to handle it. What seemed like a doomed major transaction when I was fired thus ended in great success. But let's change the subject and talk about what happened to Bill afterward. His father reported the numerous abuses Bill had inflicted on his subordinates to President Bennett, a relative and the company owner. President Bennett, who was completely unaware, was furious. Without any debate, Bill was terminated and left the company sobbing. Having been disowned by his own family, Bill, who had neither connections nor a place to go, was at a loss. With no significant savings, he quickly found himself in a dire financial situation as an unemployed individual. While his education made finding new jobs initially easy, the reality was that Bill had nothing but his education. When he started working, his incompetence was so apparent that he resigned within a month. After repeating this at multiple companies, rumors spread within the industry, and no one was willing to hire him anymore. Bill was kicked out of his apartment because he was unable to pay his rent, so he returned to his parents' home in desperation. He begged to stay, but it was too late. Bill was unceremoniously driven away, completely losing his place in the world. He's managed to find a part-time job at a convenience store and is somehow making ends meet. He's living in a rundown apartment, and his salary has drastically decreased from when he was in management. His life soon went out of control due to continuing to live a lifestyle no different from his old financial habits. He's heavily in debt with consumer finance loans, and it seems like he's in deep trouble. Apparently, he's also borrowed from shady lenders and now lives in fear of aggressive collection practices. In a complete reversal of his managerial days, he now experiences daily verbal abuse from debt collectors. Hearing this through the grapevine, I couldn't help but think that there is such a thing as instant karma. Meanwhile, Jason, despite his initial inexperience, successfully executed the big transaction and rapidly climbed the corporate ladder. Within less than a year from that negotiation, he achieved the remarkable feat of being promoted to department head. Now he has grown into a respected professional, relied upon by subordinates, colleagues, and superiors alike. I am convinced that my decision to choose Jason as my partner for that major transaction was correct. I continued working at the trading company's U.S. branch, maintaining a good relationship with Jason. We continued to support each other as reliable trading partners. One day, I went out for drinks with John. That negotiation was quite a mess, wasn't it? By the way, why were you fired? John asked. I heard later from Bill's father. It seems it was all out of jealousy. Jealousy? John raised an eyebrow. He couldn't stand that someone like me, without a PR degree, was admired by his subordinates. To fire someone over something like that, it's beyond unreasonable. That's why he's living a terrible life now, as karma for his actions. I see Jason nodded in understanding and took a satisfying sip of his beer. Although I don't have an academic degree like Bill, I was able to study a lot. It's hard to say my family was wealthy, but I often received books since I was a child. Thanks to that, I became proficient in French, which led to my current job. For that, I really can't find any words other than gratitude. Nowadays, I'm taking care of my parents, whose health has declined, working while continuing to provide care. Honestly, it's not easy at all. But I've never thought about giving up. Rather, I see it as a chance to repay them for raising me. After all, the best thing is for them to stay healthy, so I can't help but wish for their well-being. Due to the demands of my job, I often travel around the world. If I had to describe my life in one word, it would be exhilarating. Jason nodded. Although we're at different companies now, I still think of you as my partner. It's an honor to hear you say that, Kyle. Jason, like me, doesn't have a formal education, but he's diligent and passionate about learning. That's why we were able to succeed in this transaction. Let's aim to make such an impact that it feels like we've turned the world upside down. It's a big-scale vision, but if we're going to do it, we have to go all out. Inspired by my determination, Jason reached out his hand. I grasped it firmly, and we made an unspoken vow to become the best businessman in the world. With such thoughts, our enjoyable evening continued. Tomorrow, the routine of going to the office will start again. I'll give my all in both work and personal life. I declared cheerfully and finished my beer in one go.